So I had to stop and lean back and really ask myself, is this true for me? Is this what I believe? Is this part of my being that just makes me light up? And when I found those truths, it was so freeing. It allowed me to start being myself and being authentic. Welcome to the Empower Hour podcast. And this is a new podcast that I want to bring out into the world to really share empowering stories from those who have transformed their lives by facing their fears and following their hearts. And my vision for the Empower Hour podcast is just to have women or other people come on and speak their truth, share their transformation and how they became so empowered. I believe that by speaking our truth, we encourage others to speak their truth, and the transformation begins from there. So this is really just to inspire you to find your truth and speak it out into the world. And I know that there's a process that goes with that. So that is why I want to share stories of how some of these people got to where they are and how they began speaking their truth. So today, I want to share with you how I found my truth and started really feeling empowered. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Amber, and at my lowest points in life, I was sexually abused. I was involved in emotional trauma, depression. I had a loss of identity. I was full of anxiety to the point where I couldn't function normally. Going to the grocery store was overwhelming to me. I had anger issues, and I felt trapped in my life. So I took all of these things and began the healing process to alchemize them into my biggest passion. So today, I'm a certified healing practitioner who wants to empower women to own their divinity, step into their sacred truths, and then circle around other women to encourage them to do the same. So I grew up in a slew of unhealthy relationships. My parents were divorced when I was 2. I was sexually abused by my grandfather by the time I was 6. And I spoke up about the abuse when I was 7. By the time I was 8, I had lost half my family in a custody battle. And when I say half my family, I mean I lost aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, parents, and grandparents. I literally lost one half of my family in a custody battle. And I thought it was because I told the truth. I shared about the abuse. And this all led me to feel abandoned and unloved for years. And because of my belief that in telling my truth, I would lose people in my life, I created patterns around abandonment and people pleasing. My 3 life mottos were: 1, family isn't safe. They have the ability to hurt you and leave you. 2, don't speak your truth. And 3, be what people want you to be to stay, so that they stay in your life. And I lived by those mottos for years. I took all of this pain and all of this trauma into my marriage and eventually into how I parented my children. And I saw these patterns. I knew that there needed to be a change. So for years, I searched for healing and solutions that would ultimately bring me into wholeness, happiness, and my purpose. And it took a while. It took years of searching and really trying new things to eventually find what I needed. And what brought me to that point was that I almost lost it all. My family was falling apart. My nightly prayer went something like this: please, God, take me in my sleep because I don't want to be here anymore. And while I was surrounded by people, I still felt alone and abandoned. I wasn't sharing my authentic self. I was hiding within. I was doing things to please others. And so I was abandoning myself, truly. But I felt abandoned by others. And I knew that this had to change. I did not want to pass this on to my children. I did not want to bring this into my marriage and continue this unhealthy cycle. So I opened myself up to new things. I stopped self-sabotaging and began to surrender to the process of healing and transformation. I learned about some of my intuitive giftings and I started to speak my truth, even if it meant people would leave. And what I ultimately found was my divinity. I found that I had an inner wisdom, a connection to the divine that would never leave me. I could tap into that connection or that divinity at any time to gain love, support, and guidance. And what I started doing was loving myself. I had abandoned myself for so long that I didn't even know how to love myself. And I actually thought it was selfish. I have a church background and we were always taught that, so many things are selfish. But then I read a verse in the Bible where it says, love others as yourself. And what that means is you have to love yourself before you can love others. And if you don't love yourself, then you really don't know how to love others. So I started to look at things differently and started to nurture myself, do some self-care, and really fill my own cup. And that brought me to more joy in life, even in the little things. I reduced my stress. I was able to get rid of my depression and anxiety and start enjoying all of those little things and having fun with my family again. So I want to share some of the things that really helped me with my transformation and that ultimately brought me to embody my most courageous self. And the first thing that I did was I had to find my truths. I knew what everybody else wanted me to do. I knew what, this religion or this entity believed out there in the world. And I just took on those truths as my own, whether they were or they weren't. So I had to stop and lean back and really ask myself, is this true for me? Is this what I believe? Is this part of my being that just makes me light up? And when I found those truths, it was so freeing. It allowed me to start being myself and being authentic. Now, it wasn't just finding those truths, I had to begin to trust them. So when something wasn't true for me or something just didn't fit with my authenticity, I had to trust that feeling within that said, no, that's not for me. That's not true for me. I don't need to take that on. And that just led me to really tapping into that inner wisdom and that divinity and finding and trusting myself. So from there, I learned boundaries. I had to learn how to speak my truth. Once I found my truth and trusted my truth, I had to speak that truth and say no when it wasn't something for me. And I didn't have to be rude about it. I could just say, that's just not something that is for me. I don't judge you for it, but it's just not for me. And that was a big step, is really learning those boundaries, but also implementing them. Having a way to say no that felt good to me, because just saying no or being rude wasn't part of my authentic truth. I usually responded kindly, unless you're one of my children who leave their socks out on the floor or something. But I needed a way to say no that felt good to me and I didn't feel guilty later. So learning to implement those boundaries in a way that was true for me. I know I'm using that word a lot, but it's the truth of who we are, of our authenticity, and authentically implementing those boundaries was a big step for me. And then the last thing was really just surrendering and trusting that this too is all for my highest good. No matter what happens, whether I'm feeling down or I'm going through a struggle or I'm having the best day of my life, all of this is part of the process. And surrendering to the process and not letting it trigger me or bring negativity into my life, then I could see that there was a wisdom that was coming in from the experiences that I was having. My life was teaching me things, and I had to trust and surrender to whatever those lessons were and know that I could find the good in it. There is always something, some kind of wisdom that we can gain from an experience. And so I learned to not look at things as something bad. I learned to look at it as, oh, I just learned something new. Like this didn't work out very well, but I learned how not to do it. And that changed my whole perspective on life. These 5 things about speaking the truth, setting boundaries, finding my truth, implementing these things, and surrendering to the process ultimately pushed me forward into a whole new life, a life that I began to enjoy. And that was huge for me. My prayer at night became, thank you for this day. Thank you for giving me another day instead of take me away from all of this. So overall, what I want to share with you is that there is hope. And when you feel like you can't make it through another day, just remember to take it one step at a time. You hold the courage within. Just allow it to emerge moment by moment until you embody your most courageous self. So, in the next few podcasts, I get to speak with 8 amazing humans who are going to share their stories. And they're going to share how they became fierce, empowered, courageous women. And I'm so excited for you to get to meet them because they are just amazing people. I know I said amazing already, but they're just wonderful women that I am so excited to talk to. These women are all co-authors with me in the upcoming book, Jaguar Medicine, Fierce Feminine Frequency Keepers, Birthing the New Earth. And this book has just, I can't even put it into words. This book activated me. From just seeing the cover to writing my chapter, there's something within me that awoken that really propelled me forward. And I got to do it in such a supporting and loving group of women. And now I get to share some of those authors with you. And you get to experience their magic. So that's it for the Empower Hour podcast. I will see you next time.